The person who responds to someone's passive-aggressive behavior often looks worse than the person who's being passive-aggressive. And I'm going to use a Suzanne Lambert joke as a case study to explain why. Last year, Suzanne made this video on anatomy of a joke, and I don't know how I found it or how it popped in my head today. Probably looking through troll comments, if I'm honest, because it's a really good example of understanding this concept. As you know, I'm Dr. K. I research the unwritten rules of work for the working class and neurodivergence, and one of those unwritten rules is being indirect in your communication. It's the one that I say is most annoying. Part of the reason why indirect communication is so important, especially in toxic environments, is because it is a way to deny that something ever happened. The sender relies on the receiver interpreting the information. So it's the interpreter's fault for how they interpret it. So if they interpret that the sender said something that caused harm, but they did not explicitly say that, then they could say, well, you just have a stick up your ass. But they wouldn't say that because that's too direct. So responding to someone's passive aggression can be bait that could get you in trouble. What does Suzanne have to do with this? She talks about how she intentionally designs her jokes to be vague so that the audience projects their beliefs onto it. So she had made a joke where she said the line, "My zip code does not abide Walmart." I don't remember the full joke, like, don't even remember this video. And people were mad, saying she was being condescending towards poor people or people who shop at Walmart. And she points out that she was vague for a reason because this was intentional. She never said anything about poor people or people who shop at Walmart. The joke is intentionally vague enough that you project your own experience onto it. Her zip code could not abide Walmart because she's in an area that's so rural that they don't have Walmart. That's where I grew up until I was 12. When we got Walmart, it was a big ass deal. It could also be that her town did have a Walmart, but it was so poor and or so small that it couldn't support a Walmart. She doesn't say this, but hell, it could be that the SNAP benefits that got cut and Walmart gets a triple cut out of those and that they can't keep it open anymore. But she knows as the joke teller that her audience will interpret the joke in a way that shows their beliefs, their experiences, and even their biases. This can also be a way to connect with your audience if you are an entertainer, because you're not only putting your worldview, you're making it vague enough that people relate to you more because they put their worldview. It can also, as this case showed, spark controversy because people project their beliefs onto you or beliefs of the people they have encountered. And controversy sparks engagement, which is why we have controversial people famous. One of the quickest ways to get a following is to get canceled. And while this is a clever way to tell a joke, in a workplace, how you interpret things can be manipulated to blame you. Let's say you set a boundary with your coworker, Leanne. You tell her that, Leanne, you're happy to work with her, but the way she's speaking to you is condescending and you will not respond to that. Tell her that you require to be spoken to in a respectful and calm manner and in a way that's not accusatory so that you can problem solve together. Then the next day you come in and your boss says something like, hey, I'm thinking of pairing you with Leanne on the Morrison project. You two work well together, right? This could be a trap. It may not be. They could have just happened to do it. But likely with it being that close, unless you work with Leanne frequently on projects, they could be seeing how you respond and then basing what the consequences are on your response. So if you don't acknowledge the passive-aggressive subtle tones, you can say, I can work on the Morrison project. When do you need it completed? And they could push farther and they can say, great, Leanne really values open communication. I think you'll learn a lot about her collaborative style. You can just say, sounds good. Can you send over the files? Because best case, they genuinely don't know and you've already set a boundary with Leanne, and if it escalates, which you're going to document that whole time, if it escalates, you can address that. But they could also be baiting you to shit talk Leanne. Because if you respond and you do shit talk Leanne, you can be like, actually I set a boundary, then they can use that to hold against you and say that you're not a team player and you don't know how to handle things on your own because you talked about them, you resolved it, and then you still complain to the manager. If you respond without acknowledging the passive aggressiveness, you show you're willing to collaborate, you already handled it, you're an adult, and you don't have to tell them, but you will be documenting every single interaction with Leanne, including what she leaves you out of on this project if she retaliates. If you need help doing that, with the documenting in a way that gets you results, you need to go to my course in my school on workplace bullying. It's 6 modules. In module 2, we talk about documenting in a way that is effective. And I collaborated with Haisa Silva, who won her workplace bullying battle legally in the United States. She's literally making a card game out of how to do that. So stay tuned. This is a good week to join my school, because if you join my school between now and Cyber Monday, for the cost of the annual plan, $150, you also get a one-on-one session with me for an hour and a copy of my book that's coming out, where I also have a chapter on workplace bullying, as well as all the other unwritten rules of work. So the link to that is in my bio. Keep in mind, there are situations you're going to have to acknowledge the passive aggressiveness, and I can make videos on how to do that if you are interested. If so, comment. But keep this in mind as a powerful tool, because when people have to say what they mean, they are held accountable for it. And that is part of why they're being passive aggressive. If they feel like they had a leg to stand on without repercussions, they would be more likely to say it. Because what is your boss going to say? That Leanne can run over you? Now, they're in jeopardy of creating a hostile work environment. If Leanne starts sabotaging you, you may have to be more direct. You were already direct with her. She was directly, being rude to you. But if you instantly assume with your manager and project all of that, you open yourself to a lot of risk. What questions do you still have or concerns about this scenario? Let me know in the comments.